progress to see how far we are getting. Unfortunately, progress is not good. Progress is slow. We make promises at the COP, we go home, we don't keep our promises. This is if for all countries, some more than others. So the question now becomes, how do we make this process more effective? It is deficient. It has not solved the problem. It has not dealt with the problem. It has done so incrementally, but not sufficiently. So we now need to think around how to use the process better and make it more effective. And I'll give you my answer to that question, and I'll end with that, is I think now it's no longer the responsibility of governments and delegations representing governments to go to the COP. It's our responsibility, all of us. We need to know the problem. We need to know what needs to be done to solve the problem. And we need to know, most importantly, what is my role, whoever I am, wherever I live, whatever I do, what is it I have to do, and then do it. And we all need to get engaged in that process. Thank you.
To Owen now. Your recent film focuses on ClimateGate, the leaked email scandal in the UK in 2009 before the Copenhagen COP, that many say served to discredit and lose public belief in climate science and climate scientists. Could you talk about what drew you to that topic and what drew you to work on climate and environment more broadly?
Sure. Of course, thank you very much. I guess why was I drawn to write about the climate crisis? Because I'm alive now, and it's the central question of our time, of our age, and it shouldn't take having children to care about the future, but I have children, and I wanted to be able to look them in the eye, and exactly as you were saying, all of us have to pull whatever levers are closest to us, and I'm a storyteller. And I guess I'd increasingly come to see the climate crisis as a failure of narrative at the level of a species. We are globally failing in actually a battle of narrative. Because not that long ago, in 1989, right-wing politicians like Margaret Thatcher and George Bush Sr. were openly saying, okay, we've seen the science, we know what the problem is, and we know how to fix it, which we still very much do, so let's act on this. And that was in 1989. Now since then, half of the industrial and warming emissions in the atmosphere have been emitted. Half. So imagine if we'd started acting then. So I suppose that was the first question I sort of asked myself. I said, what happened? Because within a few years, to be right-wing, especially in the global north, well actually almost exclusively in the global north, was to be sceptical about climate. And of course, what happened was the people, the corporations that have money in the game, saw the cards on the table and they acted. So the oil companies and their various front organizations, in a very clever and a very nuanced way, started out on that battle of narrative. And I suppose, so you jump forward to 2009, and that was another moment when they saw the world might act. Obama was in the White House, there was COP15 coming up, and this thing called ClimateGate happened. It was one of the earliest examples of hack and leak. Thousands of emails from climate scientists were stolen and were published in such a way that it made it look as though climate science was cooked up. And of course, the world sighed a massive sigh of relief. We don't have to worry about this. And it was an incredibly successful misinformation campaign alongside others around that time. And several university studies have now suggested that they pushed back public opinion on the climate crisis in the US, which, let's face it, that's where it really mattered. It pushed it back by 10 years. So they stole a decade from us, and from your children and from your grandchildren. So I wanted to write about this because, if you'll pardon the language, I was pissed off. I was angry, and I think we do need to get angry. But I was also given the chance to have access to the climate scientists at the heart of it. And this brings me to the second part, I suppose, of the role of narrative, is that I wanted to understand the human story of being at the eye of that storm. And I wanted to come at it at a human angle, because I think for so many people, the climate crisis and the ecological crisis is so huge, is so daunting, and as we've just heard, it's a wicked problem that actually can't be solved within the structure of nation states. It's also one of the reasons why it's exciting. We have to find other ways to collaborate. So I wanted to come at it at that human angle. But I also wanted to create a piece of TV drama, because TV, I think, is still probably the most popular medium, and I wanted to try and get it on the most popular channel in the UK. And the reason that I emphasise that, because I did that at quite a lot of artistic cost. you know, the BBC said to me, if you're going to say anything complicated, can you make sure you say it 3 times? And I'm like, yeah, that's going to make a great script, brilliant. But I did it because I wanted those key scenes when the climate scientists talk about this is what happens if we carry on as we are now, at 1.5 degrees, at 2 degrees, 3 degrees. I wanted it on a mainstream channel. Because the other thing I suppose I've become very interested in is this gulf of education. Article 12 of the Paris Agreement said that every country would promise to a public education program of the kind that we had around COVID, of the kind we saw can be so effective in engaging radical and swift cultural change.